Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 58 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Womack, and I'm joined with a special co-host today, filling in for Charli, who's out this week. Bekah, everybody say hi to Bekah. Bekah, say hi, all that stuff.
Hi. Thank you, Bethany. We are super excited to be here with you, the listener, and of course, extra special for me to, be the special guest. And thank you for choosing us. And, please do us a favor, rate us, review us, show us some love online. And, we appreciate it all.
Absolutely. Like every week, we're going to cover something from social media, preview the news from Empowering Pumps and Equipment, and connect you with an industry influencer. And we normally start out by asking Charli how her week was. And since she's not here with us, Bekah, you get to tell us how your amazing week has been so far.
So this week has been very good with getting everything ready for the June digital magazine of Empowering Pumps and Equipment. But it's also been challenging for me personally because my computer crashed and I had to find out that I lost all of my data and get a new computer. So really my big tip for the week is to back your data up.
Yeah, I set Bekah up for this question because I knew that's what had been happening to her this week, and I would be a puddle on the floor, I think, if it had happened to me. So I did go and back a lot of my things up last night. I need to do more, but thanks for that tip, Bekah. I'm sure everyone could, use that reminder as well.
Yes, always. But so Bethany, how was your week?
About the same as yours, other than my computer crashing. We've been doing tons of stuff for the June magazine. I sent you a picture of my desktop this morning, which is just full of things, which is how I can always tell that it's been a super busy week because I haven't had time to clean my desktop. But part of the busyness was last weekend, I went to the beach with my family, and even though it rained a ton, it was so fun. Bowen's at the age where I think he's going to start remembering things, and to just kind of like see him be so excited about going to the beach and doing anything makes all of the hard parts of travel and getting places with kids worth it. And just kind of re-energized me for the week and for the podcast, and just excited to be here with you. And why don't we go ahead and get into the show? Sound good?
Perfect.
I'm a little awkward because I feel like Charli always moves us along. Like I just want to talk. And so having to be Charli, it's not easy. I did bring a clip of her for everyone.
It was a great, I have chills right now.
There's Charli. She's in the show. Everyone tell her hi and that you missed her just like we did. And that she needs to come back to keep us on track and to keep the show moving. But so next up, we're going to get social. This is where we're going to fill you in on something that we learned on social media or something that you need to know about social media being in this industry. What do you have for us first, Bekah?
So really, I want to invite you to our virtual meetups next week. We have two, and it's going to be one for Empowering Women, which is June 9th, which is every second Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And then we also have our Empowering Brands meetup, which is Tuesday on June 15th. And we have those every third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time.
You need to pre-register for those, which I'll have the link in the bio for you to do that. And once you register, you'll be emailed the Zoom link so you can jump on there, turn your camera on, and say hi to all of us.
Yes, we love whenever you join us for the meetups. It's great. And on that note, you can give us a shout out on the show by staying connected with us at Empowering Pumps and using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast.
That's right. Do that. We can give you a shout out on the show. But we also like to shout out our friends who help us with work or anything going on with this podcast. And so I'm giving a shout out to my friend, Leslie Gleason, today, because she shared this article on LinkedIn that we are going to share with you today in the Let's Get Social segment. Leslie works at Texas A&M University. She's an advisor there. She's one of my really good friends. And that's where I went to school. And so she still works there. And A&M put out this great article about how to manage anxiety when returning to working in an office full time. I thought it was a really great article that I thought would be applicable to all of you. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. And bonus, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, it's the last day of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I figured it was a good topic to just kind of round out this month talking about mental health by hopefully giving you some tips that you can use.
Yes, and this article we're referencing is referring to transitioning back to office life, but it really could be applicable to any in-person social event. So even if you aren't going back to the office, really we are, with things opening back up, our calendars are starting to fill back up, and it's really important to do a few things that's referenced in this article. So, to emphasize how others might feel, even if you're a big extrovert and, really just can't wait to socialize. Not everybody is feeling that way. And then also to just be mindful of the change for both you and your peers. It makes you a better leader, manager, salesperson, really just a better human being.
That's what I like, is better humans. I think we could all work on that. So the first tip that they give you to manage this anxiety about going back is, if you can, try to ease back in to going in person. So instead of going back, starting on Monday and you're just there 100% of the time, talk to your boss, your office, and see if you can do 1 day a week, 2 days a week, kind of build up your stamina for working in the office. Another thing you could do to help you ease back in is to really start practicing your new routine or your new schedule, like when you have to wake up, what time you really need to be going to bed so you can get your, 6 to 8 hours or however many hours you take to function well, and just kind of practicing that routine. And I think of this all as a parent. You do this with your kids a couple weeks before school starts back in the fall, so that when they go back, all of a sudden it's not like bedtime is this huge surprise to them. So yes, I'm calling you a child, all of you. Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Practice getting dressed in the morning like you would if you had to leave the house. I know, like, we have tons of Zoom meetings and calls, and I do this podcast, but I won't get ready, like, my makeup and everything till right before I have to be on the Zoom call. I'll get up and get ready and start work, but the schedule is going to look different if you have to go in the office. And you have to be ready at 8 in the morning or whatever. But, the moral of this is, the more you feel prepared, it helps decrease anxiety. If you know what's coming and you've practiced it in your mind and done all these things, just gives you the extra steps to help you feel less anxious.
Absolutely. And one of the other things they talk about is finding things to look forward to. So finding the positive in situations that, really you're able to reroute your thoughts to these positive things instead of the negativity and the anxiety that comes with thinking negatively.
Yeah.
And, really also having separation of work time versus time off. So take time to see a good friend or a coworker in person, have lunch at, your favorite spot next to your office, really, mixing it up and making it fun to not, it's not just going back to the office. There are a lot of positive things that can come out of going back to work and having the ability to do things that, you would do normally when you were at the office.
Well, and I thought of that too as, like, maybe start framing it in your brain as a positive that you will have more separation between your home life and work life, instead of working at home all the time. And, maybe not for you, Bekah, because you do a wonderful job of setting boundaries and being like, I'm off work now and I'm going to go do fun things. But some of the rest of us will, like, still be thinking about work and not have that much of a separation. And so going back to work could be a really big positive as far as, like, your mental headspace and protecting certain parts of your day,
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I wasn't always good with boundaries when it comes to that, really, because my mental health started to suffer because I couldn't disconnect from work because it's out of my home. And so finally I was like, no, I can't do it. I have to, like, have a line of, like, this is when I'm clocking out for the night, and then it's just personal time.
Yeah. What are some other things that you think you would look forward to, or that you could do to give yourself something to look forward to?
So really looking forward to travel, and especially the industrial space, trade shows are starting to happen again. So being able to be excited about leaving your city and staying in a nice hotel or, new business opportunities. For me, I'm a big foodie. So like I get to go to Chicago in June and eat some deep dish Chicago pizza, and I can't wait.
So excited.
Another thing is to spruce up your wardrobe. So clean out your closet, get a couple new work outfits. I know that, of course, because we've all been working from home, we really haven't worn actual business attire in well over a year. And so we're not used to it. So go find some stuff that makes you excited to dress back up and to be, in that work atmosphere.
For sure. And we want to hear from you too. Tweet us and use the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast and tell us something that you're looking forward to about going back. One of the next tips they talk about in this article about managing your anxiety of going back to work is that you just need to embrace the awkwardness of it. And I gave this to me to talk about because I feel like I overanalyze interactions with people all the time. And I just feel so awkward sometimes. I'm like, have I talked to an adult today? Because that interaction was poor. It's like, when you're at a restaurant and someone hands you your food and they say, enjoy your food. And you say, oh, you too. And they're the waitress and they don't have food. Hold on, I'm going to plug my computer in. But anyway, yeah.
I just did this the other day, actually, Bethany, like in my own house. Like Steve came home from work and I was like, how was your day? And he told me, and 5 minutes later, I see him again. I'm like, how was your day? And I'm like, oh, I just asked you that. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So I think just knowing that you will likely have awkward interactions. And it's not just you, it's the other people who also aren't as used to being around people as much. And so those soft personal skills just aren't as top notch as they used to, but it will get better. You'll get better at doing these things. And one thing to think ahead about these awkward interactions is that you need to decide what your personal boundaries are as far as what you're comfortable with in social distancing or the lack thereof. So your office might be requiring you to go back to work and you were there, but you can still decide, like, am I okay eating inside at a restaurant versus outside at a restaurant, and going ahead and making those decisions beforehand. And then if you get asked to do something like go to a happy hour and you're not comfortable with that, you just say, I'm not comfortable doing that yet. Thanks for the invite. And just being okay saying no. And then on the flip side, also accepting that when other people tell you no to invites, it's not a reflection of you or your decisions or them not wanting to hang out with you necessarily, but it might be having to do with what they're comfortable with, and just accepting that, different people are different places right
now. Absolutely. And that's such a good one, as in general. Of accepting other people's boundaries as well as implementing your own, because everyone's just trying to do the best that they can.
Well, and to be able to not internalize it, like, it's not about me, it's about them. And that's, I'm an overthinker, and so I always think everything's about me. But that's not an overthinker, that's like a narcissist or something. But yeah, it's important, and I try to remember these things. What else do you got for us, Bekah?
So the other thing is, confronting your stress and anxiety. So really paying attention to your body, the signs of being stressed, your increased heart rate, maybe, you're feeling very tensed, or, for me, sometimes, like when I'm very concentrated, I squint and I start to get a headache, and just, it's a self-induced headache. And I have to like remind myself, like, stop.
Yeah.
So really paying attention to your body and being mindful of how you're reacting to situations. And when you are feeling stressed, then you can, implement some coping techniques. So, deep breathing. A big thing is, like, when I'm stressed, I'm just like, breathe. I just tell myself to breathe. But there's so many resources out there for people. So there's mindfulness exercises, like apps on your phone that you can do with different led meditations and ways that you can shift your focus so that you're not just concentrating on what's creating that stress for you. And another thing is, seeking professional help. If that anxiety does persist and you don't feel like the practices that you're trying to do on your own are working. But honestly, even if you think that the things that you are doing is working, that you're coping and adjusting just fine to the stress that you have, talking to someone is still very beneficial. So, I mean, I'm one of the number one advocates for therapy. So like, I think everybody can benefit from it, regardless if you actually are experiencing struggle or not.
Yeah. And, on that note, I just want to validate everyone listening to this podcast. This was a very big event and shared event for all of us right now, that we haven't lived through before. It was big. It was hard. It's definitely okay to struggle with it. You don't have to compare your struggle to anyone else's. If it's hard for you, it's hard for you. And that's the truth you live in. And it's okay to have conflicting feelings. Like, I am very excited to see people. I'm going to get to see Bekah when we go to Chicago in June. And I'm so excited to give her a hug and say hi and be in the same room. But then I'm also nervous about being on an airplane, with lots of people, and I haven't done that. It's okay to have conflicting feelings and want to be out of your house, but then be anxious about being around so many people too. That's human. Give yourself some grace and let yourself feel what you need to feel. And, we've all gotten this far together, and we're going to keep going, and, we can do it.
Yes, we can. And, change is hard, even though, we've all been so excited to get back to that normal, and be able to go and do the things that we like to do again, because we have been isolated for so long. It's going to take us time to adjust, even for those extroverted people that I mentioned earlier that are just so excited to be able to go and do things again. And, and that's okay. Like, we can do hard things. And this last year and a half, is proof of that. The last thing I'll leave you with, I guess, on this is, your mental health is more important than your job or any social activity that you may need to participate in. So if you're struggling, it's okay to allow yourself the time they need to adjust. And I think you'll find more often than not, if you're honest and open with people with where you are at, that, they're going to meet that honesty with compassion and understanding.
100%. Could not have said it better myself. If y'all have any thoughts on this or want to keep talking about this, let us know. We can keep the conversation going on Twitter, on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you want to talk about all of this. I think it's so important, and it is exciting to be seeing life transition back to more of a normal place, or what it was before. And this is just what we do to keep, to move forward together and make our industry better. And I think making the people in our industry better just makes business even better too. So Bekah, thank you. I'm glad you were on the show this week. You're a huge mental health advocate, and so it's great having your perspective on this, and we really appreciate it. Let's move into the news. This is where we're going to be previewing news that'll be coming out on the Empowering Pumps and Equipment newsletter this week. Those are emails. You get 2 a week delivered to your inbox, where it's going to share stories from our industry and things you need to know that's going on. If you're not signed up for it, you can do that by clicking a link on the show notes, going to our website, any of those good things. I did want to plug that we need people to nominate people for the Person of the Week feature. It's very easy. You just put in their name and email, and then we contact them. And when we get back, and we'll interact with them to get their answers to their story, or to our questions, and share their story with you. So that link is in the show notes. Please nominate someone that you want to see featured.
And for me, so for the news, I am featuring Crane Pumps and Systems. So Crane Pumps is launching a new NV3. So that is coming out in June. And NV3 is a high-efficiency air-filled motor. It is their all-new limitless wastewater pump solution from Barnes and Deming. It has no installation limitations, with the capability to be installed into any existing pump system location. So AKA, it's a drop-in replacement, which who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
It's engineered to operate both submerged and dry. The closed-loop glycol cooling system allows for stress-free, easy maintenance. And of course, it's offered in both vertical and horizontal configurations. So be on the lookout for MV3 coming June 2021. So soon.
Yes, I can't believe it's June. That's insane. Sorry, I'm a trope. I say that every month. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already September. I can't deal. Anyway, that's where we are. The story that I wanted to share with you that's coming out in the newsletter this week is we're highlighting a virtual event that FlowServe is putting together. They're bringing the FlowServe experience to you, Destination Innovation 2021, their virtual conference and exhibit. So some things to highlight about the event. They'll have keynotes on innovation and the latest industry trends. You'll see case studies on their customer experience. There's an overview of Red Raven, their IoT suite of solutions that you've heard us talk about several times on this podcast. There's also a virtual exhibit hall featuring, pump valve seal services and IoT offerings. You can have live chats with their industry and product experts, and you can get training for yourself and your staff. It's a really great one-day event on sorry, I will find the date.
On June 16th.
Thank you, from 10 to 2. So June 16th from 10 to 2. So you've still got time. We'll have the link in the show notes to register. And now we know you've all been missing Charli. So we're going to move into the interview where you are going to get Charli, because this interview was pre-recorded. Every episode, she brings us an interview with an awesome industry influencer. And this person that she brought with us today is no different. Why don't you introduce him for us, Bekah?
Of course. So Charli's interview today is with Sam Gupta. He's the founder, host, and community builder at WBSRocks.
Yep. He's been an ERP thought leader in the digital transformation space for nearly 2 decades, with a primary focus on financial systems and ERP. He also hosts a podcast called WBSRocks that focuses on business growth through digital transformations and ERP, and talks to top influencers as well. And I always love having fellow podcasters on the show, because they definitely bring the energy and bring us some good information that we need to know. And so I think you're all going to love this interview. So without further delay, here's your interview.
Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Charli. I'm super excited to talk to your fun listeners, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, so I got introduced with you through the Twitter chat, the U.S. Manufacturing Hour, and I just had so much fun. And you were so entertaining and energetic on that Twitter chat. I mean, how does a personality come through, Twitter? But it does. And so, thank you for joining me here. And just, I guess, let's start with you telling everybody kind of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Sam Gupta. I am a principal at digital transformation consulting firm ElevatIQ. And I have been in the ERP business, and I don't know if your audience is going to be familiar with what an ERP is. Typically, these are going to be the giant systems that pretty much does everything that a manufacturer or the distributor or a retailer is going to need, right? So we focus on that. That's been my background overall in the ERP and IT systems. So when I started my personal journey, right, so I started more of the programmer. My family background was into the manufacturing and distribution. So we were traditionally more of the, you name it, food manufacturers, a little bit of distribution, retail. So when I was 5 years old, they used to say that in our family, if you cannot be on the shop floor, then you should know how to count money. And during those days, we used to have the piles of cash. So my job was to really, count the money. The next job that we got is that you cannot go to the shop floor. So the next job that you are going to get is accounting. Okay, so by the time I graduated, I already knew so much about manufacturing, so much about business. It was just way too much. Okay, then I started getting into a lot of software and IT, just because that was very exciting. I was always sort of had this curious personality that I wanted to learn about everything that I possibly could. So I started learning about the IT and software. It was very exciting because it could bring a lot of efficiency to the businesses, right? So yeah, so I got into that. I got into the enterprise consulting. I spent roughly 10 years in the Fortune 500, working with a lot of different companies, optimizing their systems, optimizing their processes, and then started focusing more into these startups. So right now, I'm spending a lot more time in the SMB space. So I spend time with the manufacturers, distributors, and the retailers in helping them out with the ERP systems. And then we have another, interesting initiative, or the company you want to called WBSRocks. And as part of WBSRocks, what we do is
I love it.
we interview amazing thought leaders from the supply chain space, from the manufacturing, from accounting, from the digital transformation, and we are interested in digging the business processes. That's what we like to talk about on the WBS Rocks. So as part of the WBS Rocks umbrella, we have at least 3 or 4 different Clubhouse rooms. We have Twitter chat. We have our happy hour. So it's a very engaged community that we have, and I just love hanging out with my tribe, just because they are super super cool.
So if y'all can't tell, I mean, this is why I had him on here. I mean, the energy is amazing, and it really is about building this community and offering all these tools, like educational tools and everything. So I mean, I want to know a little bit more about why you started the podcast and kind of, I know that just by my own experience, you're like, okay, you see the podcast happening and you want to, be involved with podcasting because it's the new thing. But you've been doing it too. So tell me on your perspective, like why you started a podcast.
So let me go back a bit into the story, right? So pre-COVID, and as I said, we are in the ERP space. So in the software business, we are almost like the distributor of the manufacturers. Okay, so we are selling somebody else's product. Typically, these manufacturers used to help us with a lot of lead, a lot of business. And our role was to be more of the consultant, more of the subject matter experts in this space, just because it's going to be too much if we are doing, let's say, the consulting as well as the sales and marketing. So majority of our competitors don't really know how to do sales and marketing. But after COVID, things started drying out. Okay, one of the things that majority of the businesses do is they don't want to invest anything that is going to be long term, especially in the uncertain times, right? So obviously COVID was the biggest uncertainty
That's right.
that we have all faced, right? So our lead flow was depleted significantly. We didn't have a lot of traffic, to be honest. Okay, we used to do a little bit of outbound before COVID. That's how we used to get a lot of business in conjunction with whatever we were getting from our manufacturing partners or from our OEM partners. But after COVID, I mean, obviously this lead flow completely dropped. So we had to figure out how to survive. Okay, so that's when we got into the inbound marketing. Before COVID, honestly speaking, I was too ignorant. I just didn't believe that inbound marketing works, to be honest, just because I was thinking that, what? I am talking to every executive on a daily basis, and you are telling me that these executives are going to come to my website and they are going to read my blog, and then they are going to call me when I'm actually calling them and trying to pitch to them, and they are not able to talk to me. So I never believed sort of in marketing. I never thought that marketing was ever going to work for me. Okay, that's why we were doing a lot more in outbound. That I can call, if I call, then obviously I'm very good at sales. So if I call somebody, they are probably going to be talking to me. But then we had a lot of time. Obviously we didn't have as much lead flow, so we had to figure out what to do. So we started focusing a lot more on the content, right? So we started writing everything that we knew. Our approach was always sort of the thought leadership, the subject matter expertise. We always like to do sort of the problem solving approach. So for us, we were not very salesy in our sales approach. So for us, building the content was really easy. So we started building the content, but then nobody was coming to the website. Nobody was really reading about it. Okay, then we started publishing this on LinkedIn and Twitter. Nobody was really engaging it. So then we had to figure out, okay, how to distribute. At the same time, we also started understanding, we started comparing some of our competitors, and these competitors were doing few things different. And one of the differentiator that they had, especially the ones that were really successful in this, they had started a podcast. Okay, so podcast was a way for them to build their brand, to build their subject matter expertise, to build their thought leadership, as well as the SEO. Okay, so in our case, when we started writing content, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask. Yeah, I was just going to ask. Do you think that that's because that it has that personal element to it, right? So when I think of a podcast, and the promotions around a podcast, you're highlighting that person because they're the speaker. Versus maybe sometimes where you're creating a blog and maybe we forget about who's writing it because it's just in the byline or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think that plays into it at all?
Oh, significantly. So we do care for the guest experience, to be honest. So whenever I am on the podcast, my goal is to make them rock star. That's what I like to tell them, right? So whenever we invite them, we want to make sure, number one, they are getting value out of it. It's not going to be our product about ourselves. It's really going to be about them. And obviously, we need to find the right guest that is going to be aligned with our values, the kind of offerings that we have, right? But then the focus has to be on the guest always.
Yeah, and I love that. I love it because there's so many interesting people in our industry that we get to highlight and yeah, make them rock stars. We like to say celebrities because we have our Pump Talk celebrity feature in the magazine. But yeah, just showcase all the great things they're doing. So kind of showcasing you and your background.
Yeah.
Let's change gears a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the ERP, but you also really focus on this digital transformation and growth. Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, we like to think of growth as three pillars. That is going to be people, process, and technology. Technology is always going to be the 20% aspect of the growth. It's always the people part that is always more difficult. Technically, we are very capable at this point of time. We can do a lot more things. But from the people perspective, from the process perspective, that's where the real problem is going to be. So when we look at the digital transformation and growth, the biggest barriers that companies face today is going to be really the people and process part of things, right? So when we look at growth, we look at growth from the financial perspective. Okay, so let's say if you have a lot of admin spend, and admin spend is going to be, let's say if your systems are not really aligned, your processes are not going to align, then you are going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in getting data from one system to the next system. Okay, or you could be doing the manual data entry in terms of, let's say, the sales orders or the customer service. When you do that, you are going to have the increased expenses from the cost perspective. That is actually going to impact your growth. So that is just one aspect how your people and process play a role in terms of your technology. Okay, so we like to look at the holistic picture of the organization when we explore the digital transformation.
Yeah, and I'd ask you if these were, well, I was going to say, I'd ask you if these are different, right? Is it different? And so just you explaining that, I can really see how it is different per industry, what you need. You need to understand the people and the process in order to see, what does growth look like and what is needed as far as technology.
Yeah.
Okay. So you told me why you started the podcast and I also was in the midst of COVID, me and Bethany, where we had a lot of time because we weren't traveling to see our customers at trade shows and events. And so we're like, okay, how are we going to talk to people on a regular basis? And we've got some time to figure this podcasting out. We had been playing around with it, but we wanted it to be different and unique, right?
Yeah.
And so I think go into your core and kind of what going back to basics. What's our mission here? What are we trying to do? And what I've seen with yours, just the few episodes, because I'm new to you, I just met you like yesterday.
Yeah.
So is that you are providing some really, really valuable resources in these areas to teach people so that
Yeah.
they can take this information back. What, as far as topics, what are you looking for? Well, who are you looking for to bring on?
So we like to think from the ICP perspective and ideal customer profile when I say ICP. So in our case, our ICP is really the CFO. That is the target listener. That is our ideal customer profile. So we are looking at the topics that a CFO needs on a daily basis. So we are looking at, okay, what are going to be the burning question that they are going to have on a daily basis when they start their job. And let's say if you have a new CFO, obviously they are going to have millions of questions, because when you talk about dollars, obviously they need to think through it, because you have the financial risk. You can't simply say that, you know what, I'm going to be investing $1 million in something when you don't know what you are investing in, what value it is going to provide. So from the topic perspective, we like to dig into, let's say, the deeper into the manufacturing process, into the ERP, into quality management, how to improve product quality, how to grow from the operations perspective, how to streamline your processes. So those are some of the topics. So anything and everything that a CFO needs in growing in their personal career, in making the right decisions for their career. So we really like to think about our target listener and what can we provide in terms of resources so that they can be successful in their job. So hopefully, we can work with them as well in growing them further. That's the mindset that we like to carry on the podcast.
Yeah, and I think, that's it. I mean, I would send people there to learn, right? If I met somebody who is, just maybe starting out and they're, just wanting to know, okay, what does it look like to be in this industry? And these are kind of the categories or the topics that you need to really deep dive in and understand. So even me not, having a manufacturing floor to take care of, I can understand it and learn from it and kind of what that looks like to be successful. And I always love a new tool to help somebody really think about finances and growth and strategy.
Yeah.
And so I told you, I graduated from the university in business and finance. And I always think that's funny because I didn't really use that. But it does help me in kind of understanding the overall industry. So I love resources like this that we can get into.
I absolutely love the podcast as well.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say that I know that you're passionate about networking because I could see it. And I think that, when you go through a Twitter chat and you really see somebody maybe just retweeting or just liking, that's one thing. Like I know they're there to participate. But then when you go in there, you're like really asking questions and, trying to get to know the people, that takes it to a whole nother level, which I always appreciate because I always say that I'm the connect part of what we do, connect, inform, and educate. So, I just immediately connected with you and I said, okay, tell me about yourself. So am I picking up on that right? As far as, you're passionate about kind of connecting with people?
Oh, absolutely. So I don't know whether you noticed this or not, and I don't know if you have had time to pay attention to my LinkedIn profile. I call myself a super connector. And that is the concept that is coming from a book, to be honest. Okay. So that's a real term that somebody had coined. And the way super connectors like to think and work is they are sort of harnessing the energy around their resources, right? So that is going to be my own personal network. So they are always trying to figure out, hey, Charli, if you come to me and you are going to ask me, okay, I have this problem, then what I'm trying to figure out as a super connector, okay, what can I do to help you? But what can I do to help my network as well? So this is sort of the three-way connection. Yeah. And when you help, it is actually going to help these three entities. And when you help enough, then what is going to happen is it always comes back. Okay. So that's how I have grown my network. Obviously, now if you look at the WBSRocks community, we started from zero, right? We had nothing. But now we have a very large network just because of this connection aspect. And this is something that I see in a lot of people, that they don't really utilize their resources. They don't really look at their connections. Okay, I have got 10,000 connections. Okay, who can I help? Can I help Charli in some way? Can I look at Charli's business and see, okay, Charli, this is what Charli is doing, and her ICP is going to be this. Okay, do I know any of the ICPs that Charli can be benefited by an intro? So I just enjoy doing this because it has two parts. Number one is the analysis, which I absolutely love. Okay, I love analyzing things. So I'm always trying to find out, okay, what can I do for Charli? So that helps me with the analysis. That also helps me with the introduction. So typically, yeah, I love making connections. I love being the super connector, and that's what I like to call myself.
So I want to steal that because I always say power networker, but super connector, like that is it. That we're just two peas in a pod here. Because it's immediately you meet somebody and your brain just kicks in and you're like, oh, I know somebody that really needs to meet you. And so what makes us, I guess, the best that we are in our industry, because we really do care to connect those people for purpose. I know I've written a blog a couple of times on connecting for purpose. And, I think the purpose is to help people. So, when you think about that and, what you could do, you got the podcast, you've got the Twitter chats that happen on a regular basis. What do you see as like a key trend in the industry moving forward? We haven't talked a lot about the digital transformation here, but let's kind of dive in there.
Yep. So from the trend perspective, I like to advocate one thing is called community-driven marketing. Okay. So if I look at the way things are moving at this point of time with social media, Clubhouse, overall, the way people are engaging, I'm pretty sure, Charli, you are going to agree with me right now, is if you look at the social media, let's say 3 years back versus in the post-COVID world, the adoption of LinkedIn has skyrocketed. The adoption of social media has skyrocketed as well. People are engaging a lot more. People are slightly more empathetic. They are all trying to help each other because this is the crisis that we are living in, right? So I think this trend is only going to double down or probably triple down in the future. Okay, so what is going to happen is, let's say I built my brand through my podcast, you built your brand through your podcast, right? So this is going to be the new generation of thought leadership that I'm seeing. Okay, so let's say either you have a podcast or you have a YouTube channel or you have a community. So what I like to talk from the community driven marketing perspective is, if you are the manufacturer, if you are the distributor, right, you simply have a product. But from the customer's perspective, if they are exploring, let's say, 15 products, irrespective of how much you talk about, you are so disruptive, you are so cool, you are so good, but end of the day, from their perspective, it's just commodity. They are simply buying something to solve a problem. So the best way to differentiate at this point of time is going to be through your thought leadership, and that's going to be through your community. And this is how I like to see my community. Okay, what can I do to help my customer grow? What can I do to help my CFO grow? Okay, if I help these manufacturers and distributors with their marketing, and right now that's what I'm doing with podcasts. Okay, if you go to a marketing agency, they are probably going to charge $5,000 for a podcast interview. We are doing this for free for our manufacturing customers, right? Because we want them to grow. And this is what manufacturers and distributors should be thinking. Okay, what can you do to help your customers grow? So in my mind, when you build these communities, when you build these, communities around your products, around your offerings, around your services, and that has to be focused on your customer. So in my case, my customers are the manufacturers. For manufacturers, it is probably going to be many other manufacturers that are going to be their customers, or maybe consumers. I don't know. For distributors, it is probably going to be, retailers, or maybe, the manufacturers are going to be their customers, depending upon where they are in the value chain. But everybody should be thinking about how they can create communities around their offering, how they can add additional value to the product or service they are selling, as opposed to just being the commodity. So that's the trend that I think is gonna we are going to see a lot more in next 5 years. The brands that are really creating the communities will be able to differentiate far more, because the customer is going to come to them and they are going to ask, hey, I'm looking to solve this problem. Can you help me find this? obviously, I mean, they are the ones who are actually selling
Yes.
the product. So they are not going to say, you know what, this is the best product, this is what you should be buying, because when they are the thought leader, they are also thinking about, their own personal brand. How can I be more objective? How can I align more with my ICP so that nobody else is competing with me, right? The thought leaders are really sensitive towards their brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the
Yeah,
community marketing is going
I
to be the
think for
next step.
sure. So community driven marketing, and you see it, and you see these different communities popping up left and right. I feel like I see something new every day. I love Clubhouse. I haven't jumped in there to, start my own little session or whatever, but
You are
it's
missing
just
the party.
picking. I know. Well, I was on there today listening, but I'm not, being the host. I feel like I've been the host for a long time. So, but no, it's true. It's like you're at a party for real. Like you just walk in the room and you can share your ideas. And I think you're going to see so much come out of this, and just the ability to join in and share your thoughts somewhere, and like have the confidence to share,
Yeah.
right? Like some people had to work on that. They had to work on their confidence on a computer screen, and, being able to look at themselves, throughout the meeting, or not look at themselves was key, right? Like the
Yeah.
energy you would spend, like, what do I look like right now?
Yeah.
And so there was so much that we learned through COVID, and that kind of that shutdown. And I can't wait to see, that leapfrog of innovation and, adapting to this digital world, what we have left from, what we accomplish and what we do so much faster. So I'm excited about it. But is there, I guess, anything else that you wanted to talk about before I let you go? I know we kind of threw our podcast together because I was like, I want to meet you. Like, tell me more about you. But what about you? Is there anything, just as we've been talking, that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my case, I think you touched a little bit on this on pre-show as well, that everybody has their own sort of insecurities, and I actually touched on my own insecurity in my episode, that I wasn't one of the sort of the extrovert child who's going to be a super party, and they can go anywhere and they can talk about anything. I wasn't anything
Oh,
close to that, to be
I
honest.
loved your intro. So let me just tell everybody. So when I met Sam yesterday, I went on and listened to his intro podcast, and he talks about, facing his fear of using your voice. So I mean, it's such a great story, and I don't know why it took us so long to talk about it, because I guess because we talked about it right before we started. But Sam, go ahead and tell them a little bit more about your story there.
So what I was telling is, in my case, I wasn't that confident child. I mean, see, I could not see myself doing media, and in fact, I mean, see, I don't see myself as coming on the show, talking on the video, or doing anything close to related to acting, to be honest. I mean, that was a fear. I actually froze on a stage as a child. So when I was starting my podcasting journey, to be honest, okay, I was thinking, you know what, I don't know. I mean, see, we all have our own fear. So we are going to be afraid of, let's say, our own, I don't know, maybe skin, maybe accent, maybe our where we come from. We all have our own fears. It's not, I mean, so if somebody is telling me that they have their own fear, obviously we all do. So in my case, I had my own fair share of fears. I was very afraid of, I don't know how I'm going to be perceived. I was never sort of the native speaker for English, so that was another issue that I had, and I could not really see myself as starting on the podcast. Okay, but when I got started, okay, I started getting this feedback from everybody. Everybody sort of cheered me up. Okay, everybody supported me. In fact, today as well, Charlie. I mean, see, when I talked to you, you supported me on social media. The only thing that we all are worried about, that initial step. Okay, that initial step is so hard for all of us to take. But once you take that step out, then it becomes easy. So this is all in our heads, that maybe we cannot write a blog, maybe we cannot start a podcast. I don't know how I'm going to be perceived. These are going to be the negative voices that we all are going to have in our heads. Don't worry about all of that. Start something today. Okay, do something that is going to be beneficial to your customer, and then you will see how you can build your thought leadership, how you can build your community around your thought leadership, and then you will be at a different level. You will never have to make a single cold call to be able to sell your offering. You never have to worry about sales and marketing. People will come to you knocking your door that, I want to learn about this. Tell me more about this.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And, it's because I know it's so true. Once we get that negative limiting beliefs out of the way, and then we do it, we just keep getting better and better too, right? It's just like practicing any sport, right? You go out there and, you try to throw the ball or do whatever. And then after you practice a while, you're getting pretty good, So, now it's like, okay, I want to master this element or that element, but you're not trying to get out of your own way constantly. You are, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's go for it. So I'm just so happy you did. And, I listened to your first and your last podcast, and the confidence in that last podcast that you had was just so great. And I'm here to just encourage you to keep doing it. And, and you're sharing some really great information. If I hadn't said that enough, I think it's key information that our businesses and our manufacturing industry needs. So yeah, keep doing it.
Thank you so much, Charli, for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to share.
Bekah, we're back. And everyone else is back with us. Thanks for listening to the interview and listening to the show. Charli, thank you for recording that interview. It was really great, and I'm glad we got to share it with everyone today.
It's been definitely a fun time being the special guest, and that brings us to an end of the show. And thank you all so much for listening and for having me on.
It didn't hurt, right? Like, it was fun.
Not painful.
Everyone else should do it too. You can have an interview, reach out to Charli. And while you're doing that, do us a favor and subscribe, rate and review, leave us 5 stars wherever you are, YouTube. We love reading those comments and seeing what you thought about the show.
And you can always reach us through social media, so at Empowering Pumps, and using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast, or you can reach out to us at our email, which is podcast@empoweringpumps.com.
And we'll be back every Monday with a new episode.
And until then, be empowering.
Figure out how to get the music in at the end. Oh, we forgot the dog.
He's so upset I just woke him up.